So this is Tomb Raider 2013, originally released March 5th, 2013. This is the Definitive Edition, which was released in January of 2014, which is basically a remaster of sorts, released for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Probably better quality textures, higher frame rate, etc. This game was developed by Crystal Dynamics and published by Square Enix. And this is a game that I very much enjoy, even over 10 years later. This game is now just about 11 years old, which is kind of hard to think about because this was one of the first PS4 games I ever played. I never had this on the original PS3, but this was one of the first PS4 games I got. It was this and like Infamous Second Son, and like, well, I also played Infamous First Light, as well as like Mortal Kombat X. So this game was a reboot of the Tomb Raider franchise, which marks the second or third time in the series' history that it's been rebooted. A lot of die-hard Tomb Raider fans really did not like this game because it didn't feel like a Tomb Raider game per se. Because this game is very action-oriented, there's a lot of shootouts, there's a lot of you fighting bad guys with guns. Not necessarily puzzle solving, exploration, stuff like that. That stuff does exist, but it's in the form of optional tombs that you will come across on occasion. So a lot of this game is just you fighting off a bunch of enemies with guns. And I think the combat is pretty good in this game. There's multiple weapons you have. Right now all I have is access to a bow. But there's also shotguns, pistols, there's an assault rifle. And Lara, over the course of the game, can upgrade these weapons with just sort of the scraps that she finds lying around, or the scraps that are on top of, or from the enemies, I should say, that she has defeated. So, this game originally was released in 2013, and you can tell it's a little outdated in terms of gameplay and all that stuff, but I think it's fine. And plus, I'm pretty nostalgic about this game anyway, because as I said, it was like one of the first PS4 games I ever played. The whole thing about this game is that Lara is inexperienced. She's an archaeologist who is traveling with a crew on a ship called the Endurance, and she is trying to find her best friend Sam, who was kidnapped by the inhabitants of this island, nicknamed the Solari, who worship an ancient Japanese sun queen that Sam just so happens to be the descendant of. So, you catch that guy on fire. So she's with a crew. There's like Roth, and there's a few other people, Reyes and her crew, but Sam is the one that you're actually trying to look for because, as I said, she's been kidnapped. So the crew of the Endurance are all trying to study this ancient Japanese island with hopes of treasure or the usual Tomb Raider stuff. Now I don't know if this is supposed to do anything. So but there will be the occasional puzzle solving. If that does anything. Alright, I did do something. Let me look around first though. See if I can scavenge. If I even get a chance to look around. Okay, I guess that's not a good idea. At least not over there. So, Lara is inexperienced in this game. She's an archaeologist. As I said, they all get stranded on this island after a big storm comes through. And the whole thing about Lara is that she's inexperienced. She doesn't really know what she's doing. She has to wing it in a lot of instances. But for some reason, she also manages to craft a bow upgrade with just the scraps that she scavenges from her fallen enemies. So in a way, they tell you that Lara just does not really know what she's doing, yet she basically becomes the female version of Rambo over the course of this game. And I always just thought that was kind of strange. That, you know, she learns fairly quickly. Also, one of the big criticisms I've seen for this game is the fact that Lara basically goes from killing her first enemy and being very, very concerned and being very bothered by it to just immediately becoming like a murder machine an hour later. She is basically the female version of Rambo in this game. Now, I understand them wanting to make more of an action-oriented game as opposed to just strictly a puzzle platformer because, as I said, this was released in 2013. But the future Tomb Raider games, Rise and Shadow, would focus more so on the traditional Tomb Raider exploration puzzle solving while also maintaining the combat elements. Now, every Tomb Raider game has had enemies. Usually they were animals, but some of the classic Tomb Raider games, probably even all of them, because I haven't played every Tomb Raider game, had human enemies from time to time. So I think it's an interesting decision. I guess it makes sense because you see her becoming a Tomb Raider, if that makes sense, over the course of the game. But as I said, all the tombs are optional in this game. You don't have to do them if you don't want to. Which, you know, like whatever, that's fine, I guess. But it just kind of seems a little weird that a Tomb Raider game has optional tombs. But as I said, you can still do it if you want. I do think the tombs are kind of cool. As I said, it's mostly like a puzzle solving kind of thing. Let me salvage anything from them. Yeah, you could get salvage from enemies and stuff like that. This is quite a scenic game. It's got a lot of nice stuff to look at. I mean, the set pieces are nice. The environments look really nice. Considering the fact that these are basically just pieces of tinfoil strapped together. I should say aluminum strapped together. Okay, what do I do here? I want to make sure I don't miss anything. Alright. You can see this game kind of does have like that Uncharted style of climbing. Which is funny because when Uncharted first came out, a lot of people were calling it Dude Raider simply because of how similar it was to Tomb Raider, but I love the Uncharted games too. But of course, Tomb Raider, look at this. Looks really nice. But of course, Tomb Raider has been around since the mid-90s. I'm going this way. I don't have to worry about combat in this section. My favorite weapon in this game is the shotgun. It's really good from close range. I also think it's kind of funny that the CPU enemies will still run straight up to you, despite the fact that you have a shotgun. They just don't seem to care. It just doesn't bother them that much. That you have you have an entire shotgun, but you know, whatever. The pistol's mostly effective from far away, but the assault rifle will help with crowds and stuff like that. If the enemies congregated relatively close to each other, the assault rifle's better. But I wouldn't rely on the assault rifle too much. The bow and arrow is great for stealth, and you could use it in a lot of instances if you're just trying to save ammo, but this game is very generous in terms of how much ammo you get, so you don't really need it that much. And you can even use your axe for melee attacks if you want. Look at those guys. So all I have is a bow and arrow right now, so I'm kind of handicapped. But Lara just had all of her weapons taken away from her. Because she was kidnapped by the villagers, or captured, I should say. Gotta move. But as I said, this game is very generous in terms of how much ammo they give you. You always have way more ammo than you need. Ooh, that was a big jump. I was afraid I wasn't gonna make that for a second. But maybe I'm just coming off the Resident Evil games where ammo is very scarce and hard to come across. So this game, you have plenty of ammo. It's just the only problem is I don't have my guns right now. But apart from that, here's a cutscene. The writing isn't great in this game. It falls back like on a lot of cliches and stuff like that. The writing is alright. I mean, it's not great by any means. But in terms of combat in this game, Lara has a pistol, an assault rifle, a shotgun, a bow and arrow, and then she has her axe that she can use for climbing, but she can also use it for melee attacks. The pistol is the most effective, especially from far away, because the pistol is really good at, you know, having precise shots. The assault rifle is mostly good for crowds, especially if they're up close and personal to you. Far away, there's too much spread and too much knockback, or I should say too much kick to it, if that makes sense. So you're going to have to just really only rely on that when it's up close. But when you need to get up close and personal, the shotgun is probably the best weapon in the game. A lot of times the enemies will run straight at you regardless of what weapon you have, including the shotgun, which does have a lot of spread, does a lot of damage. And then the bow and arrow is good, not only for stealth, but also for just conserving on ammo. But as I said, this game gives you plenty of ammo as it is, so it isn't that big of a deal. But yes, the story of this game is that Lara is on an expedition to what they call the Devil's Triangle. There's an island just off the coast of Japan which has supernatural mystic properties, and you're going here to study about the ancient Japanese Sun Queen Himiko. And of course, you know, because this is a Tomb Raider game, there's going to be some sort of supernatural element involved, and a storm forms and the ship is destroyed and you become shipwrecked. and Lara has to fight her way off the island while also simultaneously trying to rescue members of her crew. But the most important character is Sam, or Samantha, who's Lara's best friend, and she is apparently a descendant of the ancient Japanese Sun Queen. So the backstory between Lara and her crew are mostly revealed through cutscenes. These occur early in the game when Lara sort of takes break at these campfires. And at the campfires, you can also upgrade your weapons. You can also have like a skill tree upgrade system for Lara. And also you can change outfits too, which is quite nice. But usually you'll find little journals scattered throughout the island. You'll find treasures which point back towards the ancient Japanese Sun Queen, and even some World War II like treasures from like the Japanese armies and stuff like that. But for the most part, you're just going to be fighting a bunch of enemies and platforming. It's quite a linear game. There isn't much exploration as there is in the classic Tomb Raider games. It's basically just go here, fight these enemies, then go here, then basically do the same thing. As I said earlier, a lot of Tomb Raider fans didn't really like this game as a Tomb Raider game. It is still a great game, of course, but it's not necessarily like a Tomb Raider game because you're not going and exploring these big ancient tombs. But as I said, I think it's just a really cool game. It's quite fun. Here's one of the optional tombs. All the tombs in this game are optional. You don't have to do them. There is a good incentive to do them because you can earn weapon upgrades and stuff like that from actually completing the tombs. So you do get something for it. It's just you don't need it to progress through the game. And I understand a lot of people probably really didn't like that. I mean, it's optional. You can do it if you want to, so it's not a big deal. But a lot of the times, the tombs really just come down to sort of a basic environmental puzzle, such as weighing down a ramp so you can jump on the wall, climb across, and then get up to the big treasure. But when you open the big treasure chest, you don't really see what's in there. Lara just does like a gasp and then reaches down and into it, pulls it out, and that's about it. But as I said, you do get weapon upgrades and stuff. My favorite moment of this game was absolutely when Lara was climbing to the top of the radio tower. It just seemed like such a really cool moment, and as I said, this game is quite beautiful to look at, even 11 years later. This is still a really good looking game because you have these big giant environments, there's this great sense of scale, it feels really grand, and as I said, it reminds me a lot of the Uncharted games. My only real complaint about this game is just the fact that the writing just isn't great. As I said, a lot of the things you do in the game kind of contradict what the game's about. Like, Lara, she's inexperienced, as I said, she doesn't know how to survive, she's kind of winging it, she's desperate to survive, but somehow she can craft entire upgrades for her shotgun just based upon the scraps that she finds lying around and finding in the pockets of her fallen enemies and stuff like that. So it's a little strange, but I really do like the concept of this game. The dialogue is quite generic, like it's like cliche action movie dialogue, like, hey, we need to look for everybody, let's split up, you know, stuff like that. But overall, I do think that this game is very enjoyable. I certainly had a lot of fun with it, and it's really nice to go back and revisit this game even after all these years. This is probably my fourth playthrough of this game, but yes, this is a game that's very enjoyable. This isn't my favorite Tomb Raider game, but I think this is definitely a 7 out of 10.